Hello YouTube, this is Randy. I'm back from my Alaska trip, 7,100 miles, and just got done washing the bike for about the third time, and got all the Alaska mud off. The silt is just unbelievably persistent, but I thought I'd give you a little walk around and show you how I set up the bike for adventure touring to Alaska. First thing that was added was the higher Honda windshield, and that was a huge improvement. I'm about 6 foot and it did a pretty good job. If it was another 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher, it probably would be perfect, so I may add another little lip to it because I did get blasted right between the eyes a couple of times with some big bugs, but that was a big improvement. The other thing that I added that was a Honda part was the center stand, and they had way better prices than all the other aftermarket options. The only thing that I added that didn't work out very well, I added the little fender extender on the front, and that helped keep a little bit of a spray and slop off the engine, but it started to break loose, so I've got that in the process of being glued back on with some Gorilla Glue, so we'll see how that works. I don't really want to put rivets or sheet metal screws through my fender. On the side here I've got the Hepco Becker engine guards, and they mount to the motor, and then they mount up underneath to the triple tree, so they're not really heavy-duty crash bars like a motocross type bike, but they do add some protection, and since I never tipped over, they were plenty. They also provide a mounting place for the driving lights that I added. These are just some inexpensive LEDs, and the way the Honda is set up, when the headlight is on, the turn signals are actually on also. They are driving lights, so I've got a little on-off switch up here, and those are hardwired right to the battery. Got bark busters on the handlebars. Got to have those to keep your wind out of the wind off your hands. And then probably the most important thing, I would never have an adventure bike without heated grips. These are the Oxford Intelligent heated grips. Again, they're hardwired right to the battery, and you just turn it on, you turn it up, and you turn it back down. And even though they're hardwired to the battery, I don't have to worry about it because they have a sensor that after about 4 or 5 minutes, if there's no vibration, no movement, if the motor's off, they shut off automatically. So that's a great feature. I've got a ram mount mounted to the handlebar bracket, and I use just a standard Garmin Nuvi Auto GPS. I put a little silicone around the edge of the screen just for insurance, but it works fine. And I've got an extra 12-volt direct wire cable that hooks to that. But that's all you need, because all you want is the roads and gas stations and things like that, just like you're in a car. I've got a different one that I use if I'm off-road, but that one works fine for the motorcycle. I've got a sheepskin pad because the stock seat's kind of tough. On the back I've got just an inexpensive top box. This one is from Bestum, and this top red is actually an LED, and I've got that wired into the brake circuit, so you've got an extra tail light. You can't mount that without a rack. The stock bike just ends at the back seat, so I've got a rack that is from SW Motec, and the top box actually just pops off. You can disconnect it real easily. Underneath that I've got a hanger that I built, and these are the little tool manuals or owner's manuals, whatever you want to call it, holder that you can get from like a tractor supply company, and they hold the 500 milliliter MSR fuel bottle. So I've got 2 of those, and with unleaded fuel, because that's what my Coleman stove uses, so I've got extra fuel. This top box I used as my kitchen. I kept my stove, my pots and pans, utensils, the small amount of compact dried food that I took along. And so I never had to open that unless I was doing some cooking, except on the top of everything I laid my raincoat. And even though I have a so-called waterproof riding coat, I still take a raincoat, because when you're traveling 60-70 miles an hour and the rain's coming at you the other direction, I don't care how good your coat is, you're going to get wet. I also have the SW Motec pannier racks, and because the Honda has the low exhaust, not the high exhaust like a lot of motocross type bikes, the boxes mount really close. They're only just slightly wider than my legs. And these are the smaller versions. They make a bigger one, but then you're way out to the side, and the bigger the box, the more junk you tend to take along. So I've got the smaller ones, added some reflectors, and they are bolted directly to the SW Motec racks. There's holes in the racks, 4 holes, so they're bolted on right through the case with lock nuts, and then I've got rubber washers separating the box from the metal, so there's no squeaking. And then I cut a couple pieces of aluminum just to add some extra stiffness on the inside. So they're bolted on permanently, but the racks themselves are quick release. There's a screw there, there's a screw there, and there's a screw there that just, you turn them a half turn and they pop off. So if I want to take the boxes off, I can just disconnect the whole rack, and then the rack obviously stays connected to the box, but I can just set that whole assembly aside and just ride the bare bike. I had a large waterproof duffel that I put across the back seat, and then just used 2 canoe type straps that kind of crisscrossed over the top from those rings at the top of the boxes. And I kept my tent, my sleeping bag, my foam pad, and even a little compact folding cot in there, and that worked out real well, except that that's also where the fuel tank is. So when you have to stop for fuel, sometimes 3 times a day, you have to take that off. So if I was going to do it again, I would put a little small bag right directly on top of each side box, tent on one side, maybe a sleeping bag on the other, and then maybe just a smaller bag in the middle that I could take off real fast. Wasn't a big deal, but it did get to be just a kind of a routine after a while. And then in the front, the famous feature of this bike is the trunk. And I'm not going to take out all this stuff, but I'll describe what's in there. I've got a set of a couple different kinds of tire plugs, and then that top bag has got a little 12-volt compressor, and this little bag has got a tow strap and a siphon hose. This black bag has got my toolkit in there, and underneath that I have a folded up 17-inch inner tube. Now, one of the reasons I bought this bike was because it has tubeless tires, so if I get a little nail puncture, I can just plug the tires without even taking the wheels off the bike. But if you get a really nasty puncture that split the sidewall, you could put a tube inside the tire and then duct tape or wire or zip tie the tire back on the rim. And even in a case where you couldn't get a seal on the rim, the tube would limp you along till you got to the place where you could get a new tire. And there's a panel here that goes to the battery, and I bolted on a marine type auxiliary fuse panel. So there's a fuse for each of my accessories. There's a fuse for the heated grips, for the lights, for the I've got one for a little battery tender lead here. I've got a 12-volt plug hidden down inside there, which I can plug in those types of accessories. And then I've got another one of these plugs on the outside of the frame that I use for my 12-volt heated vest, and then the GPS wire is also in here too. So that block is wired to the battery, and then each of the accessories has its own fuse. So, and then some of them even have an inline fuse beyond that, so there's no way that you could get any damage to any of the engine components by the accessories. So all in all, it's been a great bike. Lots of people ask me about it when I stopped for fuel and stopped for the night. I never saw another single one, not even at the Honda dealer when I stopped in Fairbanks. I switched from the standard street tires to some knobbies. I got a TKC 80 on the front and a Heidenau on the back, and I did 1,000 miles on the unpaved roads up in Alaska and Yukon. So they've got about 4,500 miles on those, so I'll run them another couple thousand miles and probably switch back to just some standard street radials. But saw lots of big bikes, lots of Harley riders, of course, lots and lots and lots of adventure riders on very expensive BMWs and Ducatis and other bikes. They maybe gave me a little bit of a sniff when they saw the little Honda 700, but I had no trouble keeping up with them on the highway, and I was getting 60 miles per gallon. And at the end of the day, I can buy 3 of these for the price of one of those, and I got just as many miles and just as many pictures as they did. So been very happy with it. And if you have any questions or anything you want to know about outfitting a Honda for adventure riding, just leave me a comment. This is not a motocross bike. This is not probably a backcountry discovery route type bike, although they do make a skid plate for it. But I think this is just about the perfect dirt road, gravel road, fire road, blasting down, unpaved road bike that you can get. Lightweight, very maneuverable, low center of gravity with the underseat, fuel tank, excellent mileage, and I went up and back 7,100 miles, never used a drop of oil, not a hiccup, and I'm sure this thing is good for another 70,000 miles. So just an excellent bike. So leave me a comment if you have any questions, and appreciate you watching.